Returning now to our top story, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is set to welcome his Indian counterpart Narendra Modi to Admiralty House this morning ahead of official talks. Joining me now live is the Deputy Opposition Leader Sussan Ley. Good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. You would have seen that rock star reception received by Narendra Modi last night. How important is Australia's relationship with India?
It's incredibly important, Danica, and having spent time in multicultural communities recently, I'm always energised and amazed by the Indian diaspora and the fact that in choosing Australia as their home, their new home in many cases, the Indian community is making an incredible contribution. I saw Anthony Albanese stand next to Prime Minister Modi. It isn't all about the photo opportunities, important though they may be. Last time the Prime Minister was in India, I know Prime Minister Modi called for stronger action to protect Hindu temples. We had something called the Safer Communities program at the time. My colleague Jason Wood was instrumental in putting that in place when we were in government, and it protected places of worship. So I'm hopeful that the government has had a change of heart on that.
All right, so it moves on today from those photo opportunities to important bilateral discussions. In your view, what does taking the relationship to the next level with India look like?
Well, closing and making closer our trade relationship is, of course, vital. And we have many students from India, and many of them study in regional Australia. Many of them live in my hometown of Albury. Many people who come from India visit all corners of Australia and love it. So the closeness of the relationship is people to people, but the trade relationship is important. And I know that our farmers will always be exploring additional trade opportunities with India, and that will be helpful, I know, for both countries.
Is this visit a further sign that Australia is detaching from China then when it comes to trade?
Not necessarily. I think this is about building our relationship with India, and that's important. And of course, the Quad is important. When Labor was last in government, they unravelled the Quad. It's back and it's strong, and this, of course, underscores the role that India has within the Quad. But of course, the trade relationship, I always think as a rural member of parliament, is top of my list when it comes to how we interact and how we develop the strongest possible ties.
Let's move on now. I want to ask you about the Voice to Parliament referendum. Linda Burney was on Sky News last night. She's calling for this to be a sensible and calm debate. Do you think it can be? Peter Dutton has already said that this would re-radicalise the country. Has the opposition resorted to scare tactics?
No, we haven't, and I would encourage everyone to listen to Peter's second reading speech on the Machinery Referendum Provisions Bill, which is going through the House at the moment, to listen to that speech in full. In fact, there have been many very strong speeches on the bill, and we take the next step forward with a referendum towards the end of the year, as people know. But of course, that's not the approach the coalition is taking, and we would all agree with Linda Burney that the debate needs to be respectful. And wherever anyone hears debate that is not respectful, they should absolutely call it out. But being strong in your views about the Voice not being the best thing for closing the gap for Indigenous Australians is a perfectly okay thing to say. And as I travel the country, Danica, people are asking me questions because as a parliamentarian, they actually want to know how this is going to work. And they're sensible questions. So I have great faith in Australians for always taking that calm, sensible option. And while we see the outliers from time to time, they are so much in the minority.
There's an interesting story today. ASIO has confirmed it's on the lookout for security threats ahead of that referendum. Are you worried that there could be external interference here?
Well, ASIO has said there isn't any of that external interference or attacks at this stage. They would be monitoring civil society in a measure as big as this one, of course. But again, if people call for that respectful debate and Australians listen to that call, and as I said, I believe Australians are actually having a respectful debate, then that can only be a good thing. Some of the issues that we have raised this week, of course, are that the detail of the Voice is not going to be decided until after the referendum. And those are the questions, those are the genuine questions people are asking. They're sensible questions, they're reasonable, They haven't been answered by the Prime Minister. And people are quite frankly surprised when the answer to their question is, well, we'll wait until it's actually in place and then we'll spend 6 months working on the detail. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't pass the pub test.
All right, well, there's no doubt that debate will continue on this for some time. Sussan Ley, we'll leave it there. Thank you for joining us this morning.